I'm a student from Berklee College of Music, and today I'm interviewing PC about his opinions in AI music and some of his experiences in the music industry.
So, well, you want me to go in?
Yeah, just go right in.
Well, maybe I should introduce myself. My name is Prince Charles Alexander. I'm a professor of music production and engineering at Berklee College of Music. And I am also specializing in commercial record production.
Okay.
Those things are kind of at the forefront. And AI seems to be at the forefront of music right now. But it's not the first thing that I think of when I think of innovation in music. When I think of innovation in music, I think of the drum machine and how drummers were so afraid of it and it was going to take jobs away and change the industry. And of course it does. The sampler came along in 1987 and people were afraid, oh, it's going to change intellectual copyright, so forth and so on. The DAW comes along and really affects the studio world. Analog recording, 2-inch tape, got really, really affected and a lot of jobs were lost. AI comes along and what I think of is an analysis of what are our own personal strengths, what are our weaknesses, what are our opportunities, and what are the things that threaten us in terms of being graduates from a school and we want to go into the music industry. So the first one that I would ask anybody to do is what are the opportunities for artificial intelligence? And, prompting AI to give you a certain result, that's going to become a skill. That's going to become a little bit more of certain people will do it well, certain people will do it poorly, some people will get better results than other people. So that skill set will grow and grow and grow and grow. Artificial intelligence, we've already tried it at record companies with an artist. It's totally artificial. There's already been an artist, and I think he was sued or the company was sued. That's going to happen again and again and again until it becomes a more normal thing. But very much like the drum machine, it doesn't replace artists. It doesn't replace humans.
It doesn't?
What it does is it creates a different opportunity. And the human being will still be there. Like you think about the drum machine and the drummer, they're still drummers, right?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
AI will come along, there will be AI artists, but there will also be natural artists, people who are, the human performer. That they'll be side by side. The revenue will change. How much money is available will shift and it will change hands. And it is up to those of us that have some idea of how to be creative with AI to come forward and to show the creativity. It's like when the drum machine came along, some people had to come along to show where the creativity of the drum machine was. When the sampler came along, some people had to come along and show the creativity of the sampler. I think people feel like AI will not need a person to reveal the creativity.
It needs, actually.
I think there still needs to be a person involved to really reveal the creativity. I could be wrong, but that's what it seemed like for most of the innovations that have occurred.
No, yeah, that's how I see it too. Because you have to give it a prompt in certain ways, so it can give you the best answers. I've Googled and YouTube some prompts and some YouTuber how to feeding the AI to give them the best answers. And they said the first step is to give them a role, put them in the position, if you want the AI to be your teacher, or if you want the AI to give you some advice from a student angle or from a parent angle, and any angles you want. And then it can have a better answer due to what prompts you feed them.
Yeah, I've done an experiment. I've got an older child and a younger child, and my older child prompts better than I do, and I prompt better than my younger child.
Yeah.
And so just from that alone, I can see how there is value. That's actually going to be a job. I think that's going to be a job one day. I think that literally somebody's going to get paid because they prompt well.
Yeah.
And that might be a job at Google. It might be a job at Apple. It might be a job at Spotify. I'm still, I wish I knew the answers because I could position myself to become really, really rich. But The truth is, I'm speculating, and I'm speculating based upon the past, and it's not just the recent past, not just the drum machine. Rock and roll was an innovation. The piano was an innovation. Think the piano hitting strings with a hammer was something that was not even imagined until it became a real thing. Recorded sound was an innovation, and recorded sound was thought of by many of the people who were very strong in the music industry of that time, that it was going to destroy music.
But it's not going to.
Well, it did destroy music.
It did?
To the people that lived, then, if they listened to our music, they would probably say this is the worst thing ever. Right? But we love our music. And the next generation of AI, you will probably even hear in your life, maybe 40 years from now, you'll say, oh my God, this is horrible music. But the people of that generation will be in love with that music.
So you miss the music from your generation, like 40 years ago?
I don't, because I've done a lot of work understanding the history of innovation to think about music in the present and not for longing for music of the past. I enjoy music of the past, but when I go to create, I want to create something in the now. I don't want to create something that reflects 40 years ago. So, and I think many people my age haven't done that work, but I've done a lot of that work.
Okay, so speaking back to AI, I have another question. So I've seen a lot of Berklee students that they are utilizing AI as a tool to help them to do their assignments, like write the lyrics or write the chord progressions or whatever for them. So will it concern you if your students are overusing AI as a tool to help them?
That's a great question, and I think the early response for an educator would be that that's a problem. But the response from somebody who looks at AI as possible innovation would be that using AI and overusing AI will create something else. And I'm interested in what the something else is. And I'll give you another analogy, and the analogy is illegal downloading, which was started by Sean Fanning over at Northeastern University. And illegal downloading, fast forward, actually led to streaming. And streaming is now an opportunity, a different kind of an opportunity in the music industry that would never have existed had somebody not pushed the parameters. So pushing the parameters of handing in an assignment with AI, first of all, some of my faculty, my fellow faculty say that they can tell when somebody's used AI. If you're a good prompter, it might get harder and harder to tell. So I don't feel like I'm the police. I don't want to be the AI police. I want to see the result, and if the result is, we already have Wikipedia. Half the times I ask people to do papers, and I don't know if they've just gone to Wikipedia, and you look at the sources in Wikipedia, and you just label those as your sources. So I'm not really afraid of AI in terms of handing in the assignments. The job for the instructor is to now create a course that AI can't solve. So it's not just the student using the AI. It's also the instructor understanding that this is going to create a new conversation with the student, and for the instructor to come up with things that are AI proof. And I think that if you can do that, if you're smart enough to do that, then that's going to create a new kind of education between the student and the teacher.
Well, because I've heard a lot of professors are afraid of students using AI, and in some of my courses, the professor even mentioned that you are not allowed to use AI for whatever kind of work.
Yeah, and I think that that's a split between the professors who are adopting innovation and the professors who are conserving the way that the professor and the student interacts. they learned a certain way and they want you to learn that certain way. And there are other professors that are interested in, well, what are the new innovations? What are the new ways to learn?
Yeah, it really depends on how you use the AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I really love to use AI. Sometimes I think it can give me some new ideas that I haven't thought of before.
Yeah.
And helps me to go on with my process of music production.
And the way that I see that is that if you had to struggle to come up with 20 ideas, that's a lot of work to come up with those 20 ideas. Now, if those 20 ideas are coming normally for you, now where can you go? Now your brain is going to start to think differently because those 20 ideas that you struggled with before are now coming to you easily. And the human being will now think beyond that and go somewhere else.
Yeah, it saves time for you to do something like more effective.
Yeah. And now what one could say is, well, if I'm saving time and I'm doing something more effective, will something else suffer? Will I not be able to do some? And the answer is yes. You can't, it's yin and yang. You can't get more and move into some advanced understanding of something without losing some simple concept or some simple idea. Yeah. So it's just a matter of taking stock of, well, what have I lost? What have I gained? And where do we go from there? And I think that people are afraid to really do that look at what do we get, what do we lose? Because sometimes the thing that we lose is something that we really value and treasure. You know, like when the drum machine came along, oh, we're going to lose the swing of a natural drummer.
No, we're not.
You know, but then maybe a really good programmer can get you that swing back if you really, really process it, you know?
Yeah. And I've read a paper yesterday. It was talking about like there are already some AI website or AI that can mix or create music on the website. Have you tried any of those stuffs?
I've tried a few. I tried some of the extraction programs. They didn't really impress me because I know what a vocal sounds like that's recorded. I know what every instrument sounds like recorded. So when I hear extractions, like AI extractions, they don't really impress me that much.
But I mean, they can create a music in just like a minute or half a minute.
If it's done well, I can't say that, well, that a machine did that, a human being didn't do that. I can't say that.
So you think some papers are overrated AI right now?
What do you mean overrated AI?
Like they think AI is going to replace some of the human jobs in the future.
So the truth is it will replace some human jobs. But the truth is also that other jobs that we can't imagine will also occur. And the student or the person that wants to move into this new era, this new generation, has to be aware of those possibilities of the things that could occur. And the ones that figure that out will be the ones that move to the front of the line. The ones that can't figure it out will be struggling and wondering why they can't make access into the new world.
Yeah. I think that whenever a new thing is created, there will always be some job positions that are created for people.
This is true.
Yeah, and of course, there will also be some positions that are replaced by the new technologies.
This is true.
Yes.
So the fear is, why can't everything just stay the way it is? And that's what people are fearing.
Yeah.
They're fearing, I'm comfortable where I am. I don't want to go into this new space. And my musical research, just research in music, says that that's not true. That's not a reality. You can't stay the same.
Yeah, it's never
if
the
you could
same.
stay the same, we'd still be listening to rock and roll. If it stayed the same, we'd still be listening to doo-wop. If it stayed the same, we'd still be listening to the big band. If it stayed the same, we'd still be listening to blues. You know, they all are still around, but they're not the thing that has come and offered the most opportunities, most financial opportunities, most entrepreneurial opportunities in this current generation. Other musics that didn't even exist in the 50s are the musics that now offer opportunities in 2024.
Yeah. So it changes a lot from 40, 50 years ago to now, right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing about music from, I'd say 1980, the beginning of the drum machine era, to where we are now, is that the rhythms haven't done a lot of unexpected things. You know, you've got 4/4, you've got 5/4, you've got 3/4, you've got 6/8, and I just haven't heard. And I've heard some other complicated things too. You know, some bands playing in 21 and 17 and things like that. But in general, when I think of music, I also think of entrepreneurial opportunity. Like, how can you be in music for the next 40 years of your life if you don't think about where the money is, you know, unless you're very, very rich. So the opportunity to generate revenue comes from forms of music that are relatively consumable by the average person that doesn't know music. And in America, music got affected by taking it out of the high schools. So when music was in high schools, you know, complex music and horn arrangements were pretty normal. And then when that music starts getting taken out of the high schools, all of a sudden music starts to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink, so that many songs only have 3 chords in them now all the way through the song. And this is just a natural byproduct of not only the musician creating for themselves, but also creating and reacting to and giving something to an audience. So if the audience can no longer take complex information, now the creative artists have to adapt and bring themselves to some way to communicate to the audience. So that makes the music change. Yeah. And it's always been like that. It will continue to be like that. So in our generation, since the 80s, the generations of music have shrunk from the 60-piece orchestra to the 20-piece orchestra to the 7-piece band to the one guy banging away on a DAW or an MPC, a music production center inside of a DAW. And so these shrinkings actually, to me, feel like what I'm talking about, the idea of things that expand and more opportunities are created in one way, but they shrink for other people. So what happened to the other 59 people in the orchestra from 1920? What happened to them? What happened to those jobs? Where did they go? And is that beneficial for society? Is it not beneficial for society? I don't even really think that that's the question. That's not the right question. The right question is... The right question is not, does it benefit society or not? The right question is, are we living in this and thriving from it or not? And I think, we thrive. We thrive with hip hop. We thrive with EDM. And neither one of them existed in 1920.
That's right. Yeah, those people you just mentioned, I think I'm one of those people too, like using music to make money for me. So I have to depends on how the customers will take the music and feed them with certain music and sounds. And I think a lot of Berklee students, they're playing music like in an artist way. Like they don't care about how much they make, and they don't care about if their music will please the audience, please the listeners or not. Like they just do their music, performing.
That's a luxury.
Yeah.
You know, that's a luxury that when you're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old and you're at a college, you have the luxury of being able to think like that. But when you leave the college and you have to pay rent and figure out what your transportation budget is and look at the opportunities for your life to expand, you know, like a partner and growing a family and all that, money starts to become a pretty
money's an issue,
valuable issue. And even here at this college, there are things that I've wanted to do at the college to help the college. And every time I put a program forward and say, can we do this at Berklee? The next question is, how will it be funded? So there's not a single thing that I can think of that doesn't have a component of support. You know, financial support. So when I think of our the creativity of who we are at Berklee specifically, and as music producers. You've got creativity. Creativity also intersects with technology, and AI is a piece of that technology. And both of them intersect with the entrepreneurship. Where are the opportunities to get the funding so that the creativity continue to do it another day and another day and another day? So these three are intertwined. They're not separate from each other. And there's a luxury when you can only do one of them. And that luxury is either because you already have enough money and you don't have to think about money, or it comes when you've put together a great team. And the creative person just has to deal with creativity. And then they hand it off to a technical person that just deals with the technology. And then they both hand it off to an entrepreneurial team that just deals with the promotion, the marketing, the distribution, what's going on with the audience. Now, if all those three things are in sync really, really well, almost anything is possible.
Yeah, that's how a record label works.
Exactly. So if anybody can figure that out, independent of a record company, you don't need a record company. But the problem is, there are so many people in this country. There's 350 million people in this country. There's 50 million people in France, 50 million people in Germany, roughly, so forth and so on. How many people are in China? 1 billion?
Like 7 billion. Oh, wait, no, 14.
1.4 billion? Yeah. So the problem is that if you can do that independently without a record company, you would probably grow to the size of a record company to do it well. And as you're trying to grow to that size, record companies are like, who's this little kid coming along trying to do what we do? And then you've got a different kind of competition. So I think that anybody that could do that well would eventually be seen by the companies that do it well and probably be bought out, given an offer. So good luck to those that want to try to stay independent for 40 years. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. And like I said, if you do it well, you'd probably look just like a record company.
You just mentioned that the technologies and the creativity syncs together.
Yeah.
I felt that deeply as a MPE students, because without those expensive equipments in Berklee, those fancy studios and those outboard gears, we cannot have the opportunity to create those music. Yeah,
it's true, and it's also true that most of what we have with that expensive gear is being duplicated in smaller and smaller environments, like the computer.
Yeah.
What can't be duplicated is the number of managing a large number of inputs, like if you've got a 60-piece orchestra. So that gets a little bit harder to just do with a DAW.
Yeah.
And that's where the recording studio has an advantage, just in terms of the microphone inputs, being able to look at each individual fader and process each individual fader a different kind of a way. That, to me, is where the big advantage lies for much of the equipment that still lingers from the 20th century. But once you get past the recording phase and you're into the editing phase and the mixing phase, you might as well just be, sitting in a corner somewhere with your computer, and much of what needs to be done can be done from there.
Yeah. So in the future, do you think we may get rid of the recording studios?
Like I say, I don't see. So the logistic problem is the large ensembles. Because you still have classical orchestras, you still have large jazz ensembles, and they still want to represent their music well. And how do you do that if there is no way to pick them up? We're going to go back to having one microphone to pick up a whole orchestra, as opposed to having a series of microphones. So the logistics are what's the size of the space where 60 people can fit, and how many input sources can we use in order to capture that audio. And if somebody can figure that out in a way that's other than the large diaphragm condenser and dynamic microphones, then that would be a game changer. Yeah. As of now, we're using the same technology that was birthed in the turn of the 20th century, and starts to really, really come to and become stronger like around the 20s.
Yeah.
And we're using that same technology. So we're almost using like 100-year-old technology, this microphone. And will something come along that's different than that will be, I don't know, like
maybe
something the size of a pin that you could each instrumentalist could just pin on their lapel or their clothes, and we get multiple inputs, and we could be standing anywhere and recording them. So whoever's out there listening to this, if you understand how to do that, you better get to creating it now, because it's probably going to be worth billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how the future is going to be?
Yeah.
There's always going to be some revolutions.
Yeah.
Like maybe 40 years ago, you never thought of AI can do music, can produce music.
100 years. Well, when you go back before the 1920s, I think it's somewhere around 1925 when electrical recording gets created, and you look at the people, the way they were recording, they're yelling into a big megaphone, and it's getting printed on a stylus, of wax or something. So we look at that now and go, wow, that's really, really weird that they're yelling into these big megaphones. Well, people 100 years from now are going to be looking at this podcast going, what are those things that they're talking into?
Yeah, what are they doing?
What is that?
Do they know music?
Yeah, why are they doing that?
Yeah. So each generation has their revolutions.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. And there's a book series and a video series by a guy named Howard Goodall, and it's called The 5 Big Bangs. And he goes through these 5 different innovations in music. One of them is the tempered scale. One of them is the invention of opera. One of them is the invention of the piano. One of them is the invention of recorded sound. And I forget what the 5th one is. But those, when I read that book, it really helped put into perspective this saying that we have, that the only constant is change. The only thing that you can really depend on in life is that things will change.
Yeah, that's a good one. So what kind of advice will you give to the new generations who want to step in the music industry?
The 3 things that we talked about, the 3 pillars are definitely, if you think about a stool, like a 3-legged stool, if one of the legs gets longer, then the stool is tilted. So making sure that the creative health of your organization, and even I think of myself as I'm an organization. One person, you're already a company, right? Because you can create intellectual property. You can actually open up a DAW and create something. So make sure that your creativity is healthy. Make sure that your technology is healthy. Make sure that your entrepreneurship is healthy. And if you're looking at those things, then that means that you have to be looking for opportunities for your entrepreneurship. You'll have to be looking for opportunities for your creativity. You'll have to be looking for opportunities for your technology. And to keep the focus on those things as you move forward is going to be critical to help grow yourself, grow your brand, grow your ability to stay in the creative industries for some period of time. And when I think about innovation, I don't think of innovation as having to make something up brand new from scratch. For me, innovation usually comes from people who are well versed and knowledgeable about what is currently going on. And I guess a good analogy would be the Beatles, right? So the Beatles spent some time in Hamburg, Germany, and they were studying Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis, and they were studying a lot of the black blues singers in America. And because they studied it and studied it and studied it and studied it, what eventually emerged was something now that they could express because they had researched what came before them so well. So I think that the next generation needs to understand that we're not going to pick up and go into innovative spaces by studying the music of the 80s or the 70s or the 60s. We need to know very well what's going on with the music of 2024 And if we can understand and keep pace with 24 and keep pace with 25 and keep pace with 26, then eventually we go, oh, I see what's going on. And then those people that are keeping pace are the ones that open up information and open up where we go in 2027, 2028, 2029. So, when I think of Ice Spice is a relatively controversial figure in hip hop because people are like, well, does she have talent or does she not have talent? And her music is not really great and she doesn't really rhyme well. And I look at her differently. I look at her as a reflection of current culture. And the people that understand why the culture sounds like that, why the culture looks like that, will be the ones that push us into a new understanding as we move into 2025. And the people that are trying to say, she can't do that, she shouldn't do that, she should be doing this, she should be doing that, are not the ones that are going to help us in terms of innovation. Yeah. Those are the ones that will help us with conservation. And I'm not really sure that things that are, well, this is a tricky statement. Can we conserve everything? Can we make sure that all the things that exist now will never go away?
Of course not.
And we can't. Yeah. You think about wire recording. Wire recording I don't know anybody that knows how to use a wire recorder. I don't know anybody who cuts a wax cylinder anymore. Very, very few people know how to make a vinyl disc. The CD, what happened to the CD? I haven't used a CD in 15 years. So the idea that we can conserve, that we look at new things and go, oh, that's horrible. Why can't they do this other thing that we do so well? That's a tough way to think in order to move creativity forward, technology forward, and entrepreneurship forward. Mm-hmm. Now, it might not always be comfortable. New things, innovative things are not always comfortable.
It's hard for people to adapt it.
Yeah. And to adapt, you have to immerse yourself. You have to live in it and become comfortable with it and grow through the uncomfortable part. I talk about, so some of my friends, they grow dreads. Mm-hmm. They grow the long hair, right? The Jamaican Rastafari. So there's a period of time where their hair is very short and it looks like they need to comb their hair.
Oh yeah, I have those times.
It looks like, what's wrong with your hair, right? But then as they grow, keep doing it, it starts to become beautiful, right? So they have to go through the uncomfortable period to get to the beautiful period. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, that's an analogy for what we have to do when we see things that are innovative.
That's a good analogy.
If you go to Ice Spice and you say, I don't even understand, why is Ice Spice working? Do a sound-alike. Do a sound-alike of an Ice Spice record. And then do another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And eventually you go, I see why this works. I see why this is good. I see where the creativity is. Mm-hmm. And then you are now the one that will push us past that to a new reality. And to me, AI could maybe do the homework for you and make the beat for you. But we need the human being to at least try to keep pace with AI. The people who are trying to keep pace with AI and are leading AI are going to open up that intelligence for all of us.
They're going to push the limit of the industry.
Yeah. And trust me, I think artificial intelligence will do its best to not use the human. And the human is going to have to do its best to make sure that it needs to be used. Yeah. So it's a race right now.
Mm-hmm. Just have to open up to some new technologies and cannot be so obsessed about the old technologies.
Yeah. It's a way of thinking. Mm-hmm. It's a way of existing. Like sometimes when I say the things, I understand the theory of what I'm saying, but it's hard. It's hard for me to go and work with a great singer and give her music that doesn't have chords or doesn't have some intricate changes in it. It's hard, but I have to keep doing it and doing it, and everybody in the team has to work at it, and everybody has to do their homework. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a team of 2, 3, 4, 5 people, everybody's got to do. Whoops, sorry.
No.
If you have a team of 2, 3, 4, or 5 people, everybody has to do their homework. not only the main figure in the team, but everybody needs to do their homework and become comfortable with where we're going. And once the whole team is comfortable with where we're going, I think that those are the situations that give you like a Motown Records or a Bad Boy Records or a Death Row Records or eventually an Atlantic or a Universal or a Sony or a Warner. Because when you really think about it, all of those companies were an idea from a single person at one point in time. And then the demand and the needs just grew and grew and grew and grew over time.
Yeah, there's always someone who stand out and think different as others.
And I'll give you one more. There are food chains when I was a kid that I thought would last forever and ever. There was a food chain called Howard Johnson's, right? And
food chain?
Food like fast food, where you go to get some food. So I thought that they would last forever. And Howard Johnson, when you would drive down the highway in America, you would see Howard Johnson, Howard Johnson, Howard Johnson, Howard Johnson. And I was like, okay, so when I grow up, there's going to be Howard Johnson everywhere. Guess what?
I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of it, right? So now you go, you see McDonald's, 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 McDonald's when you drive through America. And in your mind, you'll be like, well, McDonald's will be here forever. And then when you get to be my age, there'll be something else that took that business away from McDonald's, maybe. And you'll be saying to yourself, wow, I thought McDonald's would never go away. And that to me is what AI is. AI is the potential, not the potential to destroy, but the potential to create something new, which is consistent with the idea that change is what has to happen, not what might happen. Change has to happen.
And you cannot avoid it.
You can't avoid it.
Okay.
A good one is that young people, anything that's new, like you, what are you in your 20s? You're 20? So for you, you're already old.
I'm old?
You're old to somebody who's 4 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And that 4-year-old in 16 years is going to listen to your music and all your ideas and think that your ideas are old.
Yeah.
And think that there's a better way and a newer way to do what you do. So if you can think like that now, then you'll be prepared for 16 years from now. You'll be prepared to understand the innovations, which is what I've been trying to do with my career, is to not be so concerned with where we've come from. I'm definitely a fan of jazz and blues and rock and soul and funk and disco. I'm definitely a fan. But I'm also a fan of, hip hop and trap and drill and pop and all these other different musics that have come along since.
Yeah.
And I think it's keeping me young.
Yeah, you know what? The 5 weeks just started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the first time I've seen so much young spirits living on the campus right now. Yeah, and some of them are playing some really, really good music.
Well, yeah, that's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Some of them are really good musicians already.
They are.
15 years old, 14 years old.
15, 16.
Yeah, it's because much of what we can do with notes has already been figured out. And if you listen to Miles Davis, the notes also have a counter, and that counter is the space. So we have to understand the notes, we have to understand the space, and so much of that has been figured out that you can be 14, 15 and just go on the internet and get to a lot of that. But innovation, and the innovation that AI offers us is a whole nother thing that's about more than music. Music will be affected by it, but those innovations are about more than music. It's about different ways to think. And just like the sampler offered us a different way to think. When sampling first came around, I was like, well, why can you make a record where there's already drums and bass and guitar and piano in the sample? So then what use is the musician? But it becomes its own thing, and it doesn't replace the musicians. it becomes something that stands beside the musicians. Now, will there always be musicians? I don't know.
Really, I think there will always be
I don't
musicians.
know. Even if there will always be musicians, will there always be opportunities for musicians to generate large revenue? And that's where things get a little bit tricky then. It's like, okay, because making money from music is a 20th century phenomenon. Go back to the 1900s. There were no rock stars in the 1900s. There were no rock stars in the 1800s. And every once in a while, there'd be somebody like a Beethoven or a Brahms or a Bach or Mozart who might get a commission from a prince. But that doesn't mean that they were the only musicians in the 1700s. There were a bunch of musicians that were going from cafe to cafe and bar to bar and lounge to lounge. And they would, get, okay, you can stay here for the night or you can stay here for a week and perform for the people, the guests at our hotel. So why don't we don't really know a lot about those musicians, but they existed. So maybe we'll go back to that, where music is just something, you do it well, and you can come in here and you can crash here for a week or something, but we don't have any money for you. And if the musicians are okay with that, then that might be what musicians do. But I don't think it's a guarantee that there will be a financial opportunity for musicians unless musicians care about that and come together and understand how to create the opportunity. And a lot of that has to do with law. Intellectual property is protected by legal statutes, and a lot of musicians don't really understand what's going on with the law.
Yeah, I hope the new kids can always create something new. Push the industry forward.
Yeah. Well, it will happen, but it might not sound like anything that you like.
I might be those old people who's not going to adapt to the technology.
Why do they like that? What is that? But it'll be the thing that's natural for them.
Yeah, of course.
And you can, that's a guarantee.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for coming today.
Awesome, EJ.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, cool. So
good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Of course.